Hi everyone, it's Helen Ford from Jesuit Mission, and today I'm delighted to be here with Father Mark Raper. And Father Mark is an Australian Jesuit who's lived overseas for nearly 2 decades, but is currently the superior at the Myanmar Jesuit Mission. So welcome, Father Mark.
Thank you. Nearly 4 decades, actually.
4 decades. Tell me where they've been. What countries have you been in?
Well, in the 80s, I was based in Thailand, and then in the 90s in Rome, with the both times with Jesuit Refugee Service. That was 20 years altogether. And then when Father Nico was elected general, I went to replace him in Manila. That was about 2008. Yeah.
And when were you Provincial of Australia?
2002 to 2008.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to a well-travelled missionary. So tell me, Mark, how are you and the Jesuit community going in Yangon? I understand you're in lockdown at the moment.
Yes, we've got 2 houses in Yangon. One is about 7 or 8 people. They're only 3 minutes away by bicycle, but we can't visit them. So the house I'm in, we're 5 people, 4 Jesuits and 1 lay collaborator. So we're cooking for ourselves. 3 of us are cooks, so we rotate different types of food. Indian food one night and Indonesian food another night, and then whatever I can think of the next night.
Well, perhaps we can share some recipes, because I know we're all looking for interesting meals to cook.
Yeah. Most of mine taste the same.
Father Mark, can you share a little bit with us around the situation of coronavirus in Myanmar and particularly in Yangon and the towns that you're working with, the local communities?
Probably we first struck it up in Bamor on the China border, because there are people coming back from China. They've been working in China, and people came back to the parish from China. So they got very alert very quickly and had a training. And actually the president of the Myanmar Caritas is the bishop of Bamor. So he was quite alert and gathered the people, did training for 3 people went from the parish for a training. So that was the first. Here in Yangon, it's been slower to develop. But in the last few days, there's been a surge of cases now. Principally, the cases were people coming back from abroad that started it. One particularly outrageous case was in Chin, in Kalemio, where someone came back from, I think, the US or the UK, went to a wedding. So within a short time, he went around to many places, and within a short time, there were 200 cases. They locked the whole town down. It was terrible. And Chin is suffering already because the Rakhine conflict has overflowed into the lower Chin area. And people are in detention centers effectively. I mean, they're crowded into camps, resettlement camps, but that's a very risky situation. And the conflict continues. There's no question of the military stepping back at this time at present, which is awful, just awful. In Myitkyina, surprisingly, it's close to the Chinese border, but there seem to have been less cases reported, but they're much more conscious now. I was there in March, and they were very blasé about the whole question. And I said to them, you know, you're here, you're in the front line. I took them a packet of wipes to, you know, wipe things and whatever. And they said, oh, yes, yeah, but nothing's happened. But I suspect Myitkyina will be. But St. Luke's is empty. All the students, they finished their their course actually. 25th of March, they had the graduation and all went home. So St. Luke's is a place where isolation or quarantine can take place. So as there are cases, the local township will help there. But one thing you can say for dictatorship across Myanmar is a system of township authorities, local community authorities. And these people are activated now. These local committees, local leadership is activated and trying to explain to people about hygiene, about staying at home, about the possibilities of contagion. So that's actually the government at the higher level, and especially the military, don't appear to be doing very much at all. There's very little real leadership, although there's some panic. But at local level, they have instructions. There's a good, well-informed Ministry of Health and Sport, it's called. And they have been putting out good guidelines since the beginning. But since we have a non-functional government, we have a dual system really, and many decisions are centralized in Naypyidaw. So it takes a long time for the government to react or to take initiative. But nonetheless, and also, of course, we don't have a health system that can cope with anything. So I think that we're facing a lot of, the people are facing a lot of disadvantages in that regard compared to other countries.
And Mark, with schools and places like churches, are they being shut down, or shopping centres? Are livelihoods being impacted?
Yeah, schools, actually we're now in the summer holiday. Summer holiday began at the end of March. So it was easy to shut the schools, and that was done by instruction from the Department of Education, Ministry of Education. So that children have been home, and all educational institutions have been shut down since the end of March. Supermarkets and shops are closed now because it's a summer holiday. It's the water festival, Tingjan. Tingjan is going on for till the end of this week. So everything's closed anyhow. Some cynically say that the government gave us the lockdown now because it won't have to compensate any business, because they would have shut down anyhow for the holiday. But I suspect that there may be reason to extend the lockdown at least to the end of the month and into May.
So Mark, you do a considerable amount of work in the slum in Tinganjung, and you're also planning to start work in another slum on the other side of the river. What would life be like for those people living there at the moment? There's no hygiene, there's no running water.
Yeah, and social distancing, physical distancing is unimaginable. People live on top of one another. So the major problem though is hunger, because people live on daily wages. I think it's 83% of labor is informal, and it's which means that they have to work that day to earn their food for that day. So factory workers and tricycle riders, all these people just earn enough money each day. So now they can't earn that money. Taxi drivers too, all these people. So their problem will be getting supplies of something to eat.
And how are the Jesuits and the broader Catholic Church considering, are they considering plans for responding?
Oh, very much so. So I was at a meeting with the Cardinal and encouraging and Caritas, and it was basically preparing for a national plan. So they now have a plan for the Catholic Church's response. And, basically they're saying, look, we're small, but we're everywhere in the country and we're well networked. We have 16 dioceses and we have parishes, hundreds of parishes. So we're located in many parts of the country. So the issue is that the frontliners for the church response are the dioceses and parishes. And we brought in the religious also because they have resources in healthcare and in contact in the slums. But insisting all the time, because looking at Italy and other places where so many priests, so many religious have died, insisting that their own safety is a priority, that shouldn't be abandoned in order to reach the people, because otherwise they can't continue in any way. We know much more now than we did in the time of St. Aloysius or the people who went straight in there and helped in the plague. So that, but they can offer places for isolation, and for looking after people while they're isolated. And in that, they cooperate very well with the local township or local community authorities who have been very happy to have these resources. Then also they can help with food, or they can channel the food that's provided by the township for these people if they're housing many. There are thousands, tens of thousands of workers came back from Thailand. They normally come back at this time every year for the Tingjan holiday. But Thailand has told them that if they come back to Myanmar and then want to come back to Thailand, they will be charged 1,000 baht and they won't get their work permit easily. So that was good actually, because it means that they won't be transporting the virus. But nonetheless, many realize that there's no jobs for them in Thailand anymore. The economy is collapsing. So the only place they can get food is back in their villages. So a lot of people have come back untested, back to village areas. So we can expect just a rolling pandemic in the country areas over time. That's
Mark, what's the health infrastructure like across Myanmar, particularly in the rural areas? How will they manage to get testing out to those areas, or they simply won't?
Nothing. I don't. I mean, there is help coming in. I think from China or from other places. There are numbers of testing kits being built up, but it's very difficult to. With the lockdown in Kalemio, the army went in and were putting disinfectant through many places. They made a big show of it on television. So, we have an army of 500,000 people. Unfortunately, they're busy fighting wars against their own people, but there are big numbers there who could be mobilized. Also, the monasteries were the first to offer. A number of monasteries have offered places of shelter for people. But the monks also need to be fed. They can't go out begging now, so they need, there's 500,000 of them as well.
Do you envisage that the lockdown will be extended? It was only for 10 days or so, wasn't it? You there, Mark?
We've lost. Yeah,
Lost.
no, I'm still
Came
here.
back.
Yeah,
The joys of communication.
yeah. You were starting. Do I envisage that the lockdown
Will continue? Will it be extended? I know there's many countries that have extended.
Well, look, I'm only guessing because I haven't heard any official communication. But the way in which the whole question has been approached has been, they've been worried to not to give too much information all at once and only to go step by step. So I rather expect that as this lockdown finishes, it's due to finish by the 20th, I think. As this finishes, another one will be announced. But people may be given a chance to go out and get some supplies.
Right. And is
But,
it too early?
But I think, I mean, realistically, we're looking at a marathon. You know, we're looking at, even if lockdown finishes, the virus is a hidden assassin and it's still walking around. So I think people will be afraid.
Mark, there's, as you know, many of us in Australia are self-isolating at home and not seeing our families and friends and indeed working from home. But we also recognise the lucky situation that we're in that we have a roof over our head and food. What would a message be that you would like to give the Jesuit Mission family around how they can support the Myanmar mission at this time, whether it be through prayer or financial support or?
Yeah, the Pope has been giving wonderful messages, really, to that this is really a time to go deep into ourselves, to you know, a time to reflect on the world that we've had up till now and the world that we want for the future. Why is it that the poor suffer so much in times like this? You know, that why is it that that the burden falls on people like Myanmar people or people in Africa? Or so I think it's a time to realize that everybody's equal. The virus respects no persons, and what you stand for in Jesuit Mission is really wonderful, a respect for the dignity of every person. And that's what encourages us to keep going. That's what helps us to be who we are here. It's a real partnership for us that we're able to be here because there are people like you over there. That's it.
Mark, please know that you and the Jesuits and all the communities you walk alongside are all in our thoughts and prayers right now.
Yeah.
As you say, there's that hidden and walking assassin that you know is going to be there for the long term in countries like Myanmar. So we'll be there beside you and being able to offer the support that we can.
Yeah. Last week I was talking with the scholastics in the Philippines. We've got 10 over there studying theology. And I told them, look, this is the time. Everybody is asking. You must be asking yourself, why does God permit this? Now you're studying theology. You have to have an answer. You can't explain the mystery, but you have to be able to say something meaningful to people in response to that question. So they're having a wonderful opportunity now to do real theology, it seems to me, and wonderful to see these guys, the way they're living, and there's 40 of them, I think 50 in the community there at Ateneo, looking after one another, and yeah, it's very nice. But I remarked.
Sorry, Mark.
Sorry?
Do you think any of them would be open to having that conversation with us? Because I know that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I could send you some links to them, different ones.
That would be great.
But I heard recently that in France, 15 Jesuits died from the end of March to early April. 15 elderly Jesuits, and among them was a wonderful man, Henri Madeleine, whose approach to life was, how can we expect to understand heaven or things above if we don't understand the things around us, the world around us? How can we understand the world above if we don't understand the world around us? And he was a social scientist and theologian, and great man. But so that this is a time to try to understand what's happening in our world. What is God doing?
You've given us a lot to think about. Mark, perhaps we can come together again in a couple of weeks as the plans developed for the church response, and also how you as a Jesuit community might respond. But very grateful for your time today, and stay healthy and safe.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Helen.
Thanks very much again.